Even while Palestinians openly discriminate against black people, it is black people who are actively fighting for Palestinian rights. Stop being racist toward black people. This should teach the Arab community a lesson. They are Arabs, the Palestinians. Look, the Arab slave trade is nothing new. Find out what it is. Research the Arab slave trade to learn about the atrocities committed against black people. Approximately 11,000 people of African descent call a particular Gaza neighborhood, located on the Gaza Strip, home. The name of it is Al Abib. Do you understand what the phrase implies? Doomed servant. Slaves, or the territory of the slaves, is what the Arabs call that area, and it is also where black people reside. One must first grasp the historical backdrop that forms this narrative in order to comprehend what it is like to be black in Palestine. There are many different cultures, histories, and challenges that one must navigate as a black Palestinian. In the midst of the Middle East, a story unfolds that reverberates with the echoes of the worldwide black diaspora as individuals encounter the intersection of their identity with the obstacles of occupation, displacement, and the struggle for self-determination. Palestine has always been home to people of many different faiths and nationalities. In this context, the black experience is distinct from and parallel to other black experiences. A complex and ever-changing identity is born out of the tensions between the Palestinian people and their black neighbors. The black experience is deeply woven into the land's history, beginning with the ancient Nubian presence and continuing through the modern African diaspora in locations like Jericho. Being black in Palestine is complicated, but that's only scratching the surface. As a matter of fact, it becomes enmeshed with the racial dynamics and political realities of the continuing Israeli-Palestinian struggle. There is systematic racism, unequal access to resources, and a fight for recognition that black Palestinians experience, just as there is for black people elsewhere. In all honesty, this is the reality. We are pleased to have you here today for another video segment. The experience of being black in Palestine is being explored. Additionally, we will touch on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict briefly in regard to the prejudice that Palestinians and international people of color have to endure. To help us keep sharing our enlightening black story, please hit the like button and then share it with your friends and family so that we may continue to fill you in. Also, please subscribe so we can continue to build our channel. We greatly appreciate your support. Coming full circle, let's review the fundamentals. There is chaos starting recently. The horrific swine flu that has been brewing between Israel and the Palestinians since October has now reached a boiling point, and the world is watching in horror. Palestinian health experts report that over 10,000 people have been murdered in just 31 days due to the ceasefire in the besieged enclave of Gaza as a result of Israel's unrelenting attacks. With white flags in hand, thousands of Palestinians have fled North Gaza and are making their way south in pursuit of safety, which is becoming progressively more elusive as Israel continues to bomb the whole territory. As tragic as the news is right now, and it is tragic even as we speak, the globe feels more unstable and dangerous than it has in a long time, despite the fact that everywhere is in the craziest, bloodiest chaos. In the past few weeks, we have witnessed a tragic conflict erupt in the Middle East. This conflict began with the brutal murder of over 1,400 Israeli civilians, including many children, at the hands of Hamas. In response, Israel has displaced over 1 million people, killed at least 9,000 Palestinian civilians, including thousands of children, and cut off water, food, and electricity to a captive population, which threatens to compound the humanitarian crisis. Feeling hopeful is challenging. We are all morally compelled to confront the truth when confronted with photos of grieving families and remains being removed from debris. Salah al-Din Road, a major thoroughfare in northern Gaza, was used by 15,000 Palestinians to flee the area the day before, according to the UN. On Monday, the estimated sum was 3 times lower than this. On Wednesday, the Israeli military gave the people living in northern Gaza 4 hours to evacuate, Thousands of people fear an assault and are observed strolling south, not in car convoys, while holding white flags. They are making the frantic trek south, uncertain of what the future holds, but they are traveling in big groups in the hopes that there may be some protection in numbers. Israeli airstrikes have reached every part of the Gaza Strip, according to Palestinians. Palestinians report that Israeli airstrikes have forcibly removed 70% of Gaza's 2.3 million people from their homes. Children, the elderly, and those with disabilities make up the majority of those who have gone, and they have taken very little with them. In order to reach the southern regions, several said they had to pass Israeli checkpoints and see arrests made by Israeli soldiers. The Gaza Ministry of Health released a statement on Monday, reporting that the number of casualties has increased to 10,400 Palestinians and counting. Unfortunately, over 4,300 children have lost their lives, with many more still trapped under the debris. What could have possibly caused such mad destruction in the Palestinian cities, especially with the Israeli siege cutting off access to essential necessities like fuel, food, and power? According to Israeli sources, more than 1,400 people were murdered in attacks launched by Hamas on southern Israel on October 7th, supposedly breaking the impasse. On Saturday morning, October 7th, 2023, militants from Hamas invaded Israeli territory, killing hundreds of people in houses and streets close to the Gaza border and reviving gunfights in Israeli communities after decades of calm. Israel reports that armed factions in Gaza, including Hamas, have abducted and are keeping captive approximately 150 individuals, including both troops and civilians. On October 10, 2023, Israel increased the deployment of reservists to 360,000 as part of a stepped-up offensive. The Israeli military announced that it had successfully reclaimed control of the southern districts targeted by Hamas, as well as the border areas with Gaza. The bulk of the inhabitants, who are refugees whose ancestors were forcibly displaced from their homes and prohibited from returning when Israel was founded in 1948, feel a terrible sense of déjà vu due to the upheaval in Gaza. There is no flour, and we have no food. Moamen Al-Aja, a woman taking refuge in southern Gaza, informed Al Jazeera that people are queuing for water. Gaza transformed into a mystery instantly. Fires sparked by Israeli bombs and a few hospitals lit by sputtering generators will be the sole sources of light in the Gaza Strip during the night. On Wednesday, 2 days following the announcement of a full blockade by the Israeli defense minister, the final operational power plant in the region ran out of fuel. Nothing was available throughout the siege, including food, water, power, and nearly all forms of communication. Israel's offensive against Hamas, which is responsible for over 1,200 deaths this past weekend, has essentially transformed the two 3 million-person population's home into a murderous jail. The devastation of civilian infrastructure and the dwindling electrical supply have left the Palestinians in Gaza with few means of communication with each other and the outside world. In any case, it appears that the aftermath of this tragic tragedy is starting to shake the world to its core about some serious, unresolved issues. The recent momentum for global dialogue on reparatory justice for people of African descent was held by the Social, Humanitarian and Cultural Committee, SOCUM, also known as the Third Committee of the United Nations General Assembly of the United Nations, on October 30th, 2023. These factors have been substantially influential. At a time when many attendees expressed their agreement with the Palestinians' right to self-determination, Barbara G. Reynolds, chair of the Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent, drew attention to the ways in which, in the civil, political, economic, and cultural domains, post-colonial institutions and practices perpetuate the legacy of slavery and colonization, causing a third wave of economic inequality and suffering for people of African descent. Banking, insurance, taxes, land ownership, and land usage are all entangled systems that limit wealth accumulation and, more crucially, wealth transfer from one generation to the next. At the national, neighborhood, and individual levels, Reynolds acknowledged the weight of black debt, which consists of policies and systems that have effectively exacerbated precarity and drained assets from people of African ancestry through financial instruments. As a result, she emphasized the need for all member nations to eradicate racism and other forms of systematic discrimination against individuals of African heritage. In addition, Epsie Campbell-Barr, chair of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, brought attention to the ongoing issue of overzealous police force against individuals of African descent, the ongoing problem of violence against African descent migrants and asylum seekers, and the setbacks in the fight for educational equality. In light of this, she emphasized the need to produce a UN proclamation on the advancement, preservation, and complete recognition of the rights of persons of African origin. At the height of the situation's emergence on the ground, representatives from all around the world were present at this meeting. During the committee's interactive debate, representatives from all around the world explored the topic of racism and self-determination, focusing on the need to eradicate xenophobia, racism, discrimination, and similar forms of intolerance. A large number of delegates voiced their support for the Palestinian people and the right to self-determination for all peoples, including those living under foreign rule. One of these was the Bangladeshi delegate who spoke out against Israel's homicidal policies and practices in Palestine and its occupation in the worst words imaginable. At the time of this meeting, half of the civilian casualties were minors, and the number of casualties surpassed 7,000. He went on to say that Israel's present military campaign in Gaza has violated all international norms and standards. Expressing his disappointment that the Security Council had been unable to prevent Israel's crimes, he demanded a humanitarian truce immediately and praised the decision of the International Criminal Court's prosecutor to focus the investigation on the Palestinian issue. The representative from Jordan reported that within the previous 3 weeks, 59 UNWA employees in Gaza had been killed. She cautioned that the most disadvantaged Gazans are more susceptible to xenophobic violence and racial prejudice as a result of ongoing collective food, water, and fuel shortages and indiscriminate shelling. They represent dreams shattered, families broken, and futures stolen, the Indonesian representative stated, expressing horror at the situation in Gaza and the rapidly increasing death toll. If we don't want to end up with nothing, or worse, nobody to negotiate with, we need to get the peace process back on track, she said. The right to self-determination is a theoretical concept for Palestinians living under Israeli occupation, according to the representative of the League of Arab States. He cited Israel's efforts to forcefully relocate the occupied Gazans to the south before displacing them to neighboring countries as a serious breach of international humanitarian law. There has been a dramatic increase in terrorist attacks, anti-Semitism, and efforts to delegitimize Israel since October 7th, according to Israel's delegate, and the League will stop at nothing to secure the rights of the Palestinian people through diplomatic and lawful means. Jews are being attacked worldwide, as shown by the global uprising that followed the attacks. She emphasized that the consequences of what happened on October 7th and in the days that followed demonstrated how crucial the Jewish right to self-determination is. Attendees at this gathering brought to light the persistent injustices endured by individuals of African heritage across the globe. The delegation from Cameroon emphasized the importance of adequately acknowledging the illegal and financial consequences of the transatlantic slave trade. She pointed out the necessity to restore the truth about the slave trade's role in colonization and the systematic opposition to a resolution for specific global action to eliminate racism and racial discrimination. She also emphasized the importance of museums unconditionally returning cultural property. While this may seem like a positive development, It is occurring at the same time as the dangerous unrest and chaos that are sweeping across Palestinian cities. We are curious about the experiences of the black communities in Palestine and the diaspora, and how they are coping with the impending disaster in a place where being black is seen as a curse. Palestinian children cannot grow up in a sovereign state while an occupation army constantly monitors them, dictating not only their whereabouts, but also those of their parents and grandparents. This injustice persists even when settler aggression towards Palestinians goes unpunished. There should be no restrictions on Palestinians' rights to farm their land, on students' movement throughout the West Bank, or on the displacement of Palestinian families. The solution does not lie in occupation or expulsion. In regard to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that moving statement by former US President Barack Obama, a prominent figure in the worldwide black community, has been circulating online for weeks. It doesn't end there, though. Palestine must be liberated. Free Palestine. Palestine must be freed. This nonsense from Israel can only end if South Africa takes a stand and says, "Leave." We must ensure that individuals who support Palestine, particularly our brothers and sisters who believe that Palestine is under attack, understand this. Every single country in Africa will become a member. Palestine embassies must leave will be a cry from the progressive global community. We just want to make it clear to Israel and everyone else that we stand with the Palestinian people. That's all. Julius Malema, a South African and a fearless voice for the worldwide black community in regard to the Israeli-Palestinian issue, delivered one of the most poignant humanitarian speeches of the period, explaining that they would not remain neutral during these trying times, since doing so would be the same as taking a side. Furthermore, Malema's stance is that wherever Israel goes, it should be declared a terrorist state. Everywhere Israel goes, people must declare him a terrorist. Since he is the foremost global terrorist, and the world must always struggle against terrorists, he will never be able to experience peace. Palestinians are racist toward black people, and if you look around, it's black people that are out there advocating for the rights of Palestinians. It would feel quite relieving, on the other hand, while the black solidarity goes on, said a Palestinian woman whose statement went viral online. Let this serve as a lesson to the Arab community at large, and the Palestinian people specifically, to end their racism against black people. The moment things go bad, it is black people who stand up and defend the downtrodden. People cannot be changed by Allah until they alter themselves according to His words. To that end, if you're praying and asking, "Oh Allah, why are the Israeli soldiers racist toward Arabs? And why are they doing all these things to the Palestinian people?" you should ask yourself why you can't find an answer. You Arabs, you Palestinians, and even some of your own family members. How many of you are racist toward black people? How many of you are racist toward other Muslim communities, including those of Pakistan, Bangladesh, Morocco, Libya, and the Gulf, while simultaneously saying, "We are Muslim"? The Palestinian people are strongly encouraged to address this situation as a nation. In this time of relative calm, which we pray will pass quickly, no one wants to have to deal with the difficulties of juggling their internal and external identities. In light of the ever-changing nature of the fight for racial justice on a worldwide scale, it is imperative that we, the people of Palestine, learn to empathize with one another by recognizing the unique intersectionality of being black in Palestine. Here we are at the end of this video segment. Do you have anything to add? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. We love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends and family, and hit that like button to help spread our eye-opening black narrative. Thank you.